So hi, good evening, everyone. I am Deepak. We are back again with our Friday session of BBKP with, someone whose story is really motivating, Ishaan Verma. Before Ishaan obviously takes over, I know he is, everyone wants to hear him, but I have in every video of BBKP, wherever have students from, whichever college we have them from, there are certain characteristics which remain same, right? I did not again discuss it with Ishaan, but I've always talked about these characteristics. Student is very humble, who cracks the paper. These are the characteristics of a student, right? He's very humble, faces problems, but comes out of those problems, has that energy, has that stamina, has that mental calmness to come out of that trouble. Journey was never simple. Okay, everyone has issues, everyone has difficulties which come. How do you come out of them is the main thing. Third is the person who's the most calm during this preparation and is very focused. Right. While I've talked about these three things when I was interacting with Ishaan, I also really liked what he said a couple of days back to me. Sir, everyone needs to understand what is their starting point. Everyone has their own starting point, and everyone needs to know how to reach the final destination. So yes, discovery of a starting point. Not that I did not know it, but that's the beauty of the whole thing. That when you interact with the generation which has just cracked the paper, they get all these points and put it across to you. So let's understand it from Ishaan. How did he prepare? How did he go about it? And what are the difficulties that he faced? Or rather, let him just speak his heart out for the next 15-20 minutes before we start asking questions. And as I've always said, this preparation is very person specific. I cannot yes, there are some general rules, but please ask questions and fine tune yourself by interacting with Ishaan. Let's have a very interactive session today. Over to you, Ishaan. Please give a brief introduction about yourself. Sorry, before that, heartiest congratulations from me and Hitbullseye team. How does it feel? First of all, how does it feel before what was your first reaction when you cracked the interview? Were you confident that you cracked the interview? I did not ask you this question before. Yeah.
No, after the interview, I wasn't confident enough because I felt there were portions where I could have answered a lot better.
Okay.
In IIM Ahmedabad interview, what happens is, you're interviewing for the topmost college in the country, so automatically you get under a lot of pressure.
Right.
So freely thinking at that point of time itself becomes a challenge. So I was, 50-50. It wasn't so bad. It wasn't so good also, in my opinion. But when the result came, so the site, it went down around 1 p.m. and result came after 4 hours, around 5.
Okay.
That whole time you're just refreshing the site, and when you actually see the congratulations message, it's really cool to see it.
Very nice, very nice. So happiest moment of your life, can we say?
Yeah, one of the moments.
One of
It
the
makes the whole journey worth it over 2 years. So yeah.
very nice, very nice. So capturing those moments. Did you capture any of those moments? No.
Capture, no, not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So over to you. Give a brief introduction about yourself, and
Yeah.
then speak your heart out before I start probing you further from a student's perspective and start asking you questions. How
Yeah.
did you prepare? What did you do? We really want to understand. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I'm Ishaan Verma. I stay in Chandigarh. I'm 24 years old. I did my schooling from Delhi Public School in Sector 40. I'm a national level badminton player as well. I've played for Chandigarh at the nationals for about 6-7 years when I was in school. After completing my school, I got admission into BITS Pilani Goa campus, computer science. I graduated from there in 2020. After that, I worked for 2 years as a software engineer in a US bank. Yeah, that's about my profile. And coming to CAT preparation, so this was my second attempt. Last attempt, I had scored a 99.1 percentile. So I did not get any calls from the top IIMs, and it was always at the back of my head that maybe I would like to give another attempt to try for the topmost colleges. But whatever interviews I had, I prepared for them. I converted some schools, but uh, at the end of the day, I decided that maybe it makes sense for me to give another attempt. I was, around 18 months I had completed. I thought I'll gain some more work experience and then I'll give it another shot. So my main strategy was to focus more on mocks because I did not. So while preparing for JEE, you already have that habit of developing that mental aptitude and IQ to solve particular logical or quantitative questions. And coming to the verbal section, I am a voracious reader. I've been, my dad inculcated this habit in me from a very young age. So the verbal section, I always felt it was a big strength of mine in the CAT paper. So those were the other two sections I mainly worked on. And mocks, yeah, giving mocks was the strategy, and you have to analyze whatever mock you're giving. Sometimes you get a 90 percentile, sometimes you get a 99. I've even got 80 percentile in some mocks as well. Sometimes the DILR section, you get no question right. So coming back from those, you learn not to let it affect you. Last year it affected me a lot. This year I knew it does not matter, because last year when you're scoring this much, I was able to translate it into a 99 plus score. But then you realize to get a call, you need at least a 99.8 plus. So in October, I decided that my job was also I had to put in more hours over there. I decided that I'll, leave and take 1 month for my CAT prep. That 1 month, I just gave a mock every day, giving it in my CAT time slot, 4:30 to 6:30, and analyzing it in the morning the next day. So yeah, that was the strategy I followed. Again, that was because that was my starting point. I had identified. So that worked for me. And during the exam as well, you never know. I mean, how is your exam going at that point in time? So verbal section I felt went good for me. The DILR section, it was in slot 3, it was the toughest this time out of all the 3 slots. So I was able to get one set. I was sure that's all right. In the second one, I was completely, confused, because the cases I had solved, I was getting the answers, but still I wasn't sure if I'll get the whole set correct. So, and subsequently in the quant section also, runoff effect, that also, tanked a bit. But yeah, at the end of when the results came out, turns out the paper was, pretty difficult, and I ended up getting a 99.94. So, it worked out gladly. Yeah.
Right. So tell us something. How did you prepare it for the first time, and how was your preparation different the second time, or was it almost the same? Over to you.
It was almost the same, sir. I mean, what I felt different in the second time was the time I took off from my job. It helped a lot in maintaining my emotional and mental state during that, time up to the paper. That was the main difference I found. That's why I decided to take that step as well. I, talked to my manager. He was also pretty, supportive of that. So I felt that was the main difference, getting into the mindset of attempting the paper correctly and managing your emotional state during that time.
Exactly. Rather, during the preparation, emotional status is something which has to be managed. One has to be calm. There
Yeah,
will be
yeah.
situations which will make you tense. But was it not? Was it not very difficult after having scored 99.1 and still wanting to take another attempt?
Yes, sir, it's difficult, but you always have that aspiration of giving it your best. And I felt that last year maybe I was, a bit half-hearted in my preparation strategy. I wasn't, very consistent with it. I just gave something like, 5, 6 mocks I gave last year, which I felt was very less, because I did not do a lot of CAT prep, running up to the actual CAT exam. So I felt if I just increase that, 3, 4 times, maybe I'll be in a better position next year. So that was my main motivation. And of course, you want to go to institutes, like the one I'm getting into right now. That's always an aspiration. So yeah, I'm glad to be in this position.
Right, right. Very nice. But I completely agree with you, and I second that, because in all our videos, in all our classes, we've only been talking about that these mockcats, uh, everyone has to start right away. Okay.
Yeah.
And you cannot delay. And correct me, Ishaan, if I'm wrong. So mockcats have to be started. You have to start them right away. Go slow. You don't have to complete all the course material or the basics to actually take the attempt to the paper, the mock cat, because it's also about leaving the questions, not only about picking those questions. Okay, which question, why are you leaving it? What is that basic which is missing? And we've talked about multiple times. Am I right,
Yeah,
Ishaan?
definitely. Definitely. So CAT, what I mentioned, maintaining your emotional state, what you can infer it from it, that you need to choose your questions very carefully. If you're seeing some questions you're not understanding them at all, you should feel comfortable moving on. You don't have to fight with every question in the paper and trying to solve everything you come across. So because around this time, around 40% marks, you got a 99 percentile, usually it's around 50. So anyway, they don't want you to be scoring, solving 80 to 90% of the paper. So yeah, you're definitely right. During a preparation, you will never be in a state where you're, perfect with every topic. You cannot be perfect with every quant topic, every DILR, puzzle set. That is not possible. In English also, it will vary. On some days, your focus will be amazing. You'll be able to understand the author's point of view, with no problem at all. On some days, what you understand from what you are reading, it's completely different. So you get a lot of questions wrong. So being comfortable with leaving certain questions you're not sure of, but maintaining that paper attempting strategy where you maintain your speed as well throughout the sections, that is pretty important. You shouldn't be, dejected seeing low mock cat scores, because I have never scored, the actual percentile I've got in any of my mocks running up to the actual cat exam. That has not happened for me, at least.
No, so that's also the case if you mathematically understand it this way, that there are a lot of other students also coming in to give the paper, because who are not preparing. So percentile is basically the percentage of students below you. So when that chunk comes, your percentile also improves. I would
Yeah.
say like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, the point is that you had a calm mind, head over your shoulders, and hence you knew it that even mock cats are a part of your preparation, and the final paper will decide. And that's how you were taking mock cats, that I need to fine tune my strategy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
Yes. So that's the ideal way of going about it. And I always cite an example from sports, that, see, understand that not every ball someone has to hit a 4 or a 6. There
Hmm.
are some balls which have to be left so that you don't get out. A person get who's not practiced enough gets into that pressure situation, goes out to bat, will not be able to justify if he's not been multiple times, 30, 40, 50 times in that situation. Okay, then the nerves start getting calm. But again, exam day pressure always remains. So
Mhm.
one has to practice. One has to practice which questions are to be left, which questions are to be done, what is my strength, which topic I need to pick up. So that's where my next question is. So Shan, you primarily focus from a mock cat perspective. So talking about three broader sections, that verbal, quant,
Mhm.
and logical reasoning and DI. So what, let's say verbal. So you used to do RC. What was your way? Can you, if you can just throw some light on how did you actually did you get about getting, how many questions did you do? What was your strategy during preparation for RC, for logical reasoning questions, for no sorry for para jumbles? What was your strategy around each of these sections?
Sure, sir. So I'll start with verbal. In verbal, my target always was I have to attempt the whole section. Because I think I have a faster reading speed, so I was able to, complete all the four RCs in about 20-25 minutes. The remaining time, 15 minutes, I used to, do the other questions. RC wise also, from the first paragraph, you're reading the paragraphs. You can just, I used to just write the summary on my rough sheet, whatever I can remember after the first read. For the first para, you write. For the second, third, fourth, usually there are 4 or 5 paragraphs only. And after that, you go to the question. So people actually, I've heard this from a lot of my friends as well, and people who are preparing. People can't identify which is the harder RC or which RC to leave actually.
Yes.
So now there are, what happened in CAT this time, they started playing in a lot of double negative or triple negative. I mean, questions like, which of the following, if not assumed, would make this assumption false? I mean, they used to play around with these kind of questions a lot now.
Yes.
So this is another way of identifying. Even if the RC looks simple, you just look at the questions, if the questions look simple or complicated. So that is what I played in this year's exam as well. So this was the one RC I did at the end, and I ended up leaving one RC. I just attempted one question from that one. So yeah, mainly I would say just go through all the paras, write whatever you remember, a one-liner from each of them. Para jumbles, to be honest, I wouldn't say it's a hard strategy I used to follow. You just start by identifying sentences which you know they cannot be the start or the ending sentences. You figure out the middle ones and you figure out the ending ones possible. Then you play around with them, see which fits the best. And this year they actually CAT actually added a new type of question in verbal. So fill in the blank. You had to fill a phrase. That was a new pattern which they introduced. The
Yes.
two questions
Yes.
were there. So yeah, if that also no particular strategy, you just try to fit in whatever options are there. Then rearranging, no, rearranging is done, right? Summary.
Yeah.
Summary, again, no, I wouldn't say no hard and fast strategy again. I felt really comfortable doing it during my preparation as well. So mainly I would say just develop your reading habit, start reading the newspaper or some magazines or blogs which are available, 1 hour every day or half an hour, whatever you can do. Reading speed is the main difference when it comes to verbal, because some of my friends, they didn't have this habit of reading. They do find doing verbal pretty challenging. So that
Agree.
is the main thing. You need
Which
to.
newspapers did you read? Do you read?
Yeah, I actually mainly read the Economic Times. So
Okay.
I'm not one of those who used to read it maybe every day. We get a lot of news from our phones. But during the month leading up to CAT prep, that was the 1 month I read the newspaper every day. There's a blog, some blogs online I used to read. And whenever you're traveling or something, just, whatever you're doing, you read something on your phone. That's it. Yeah, for verbal, that is the main thing. For DILR, it's during the mocks, focus is the most important thing again. You have to understand which kind of puzzles are your strengths, which are not. Like for when it comes to me, uh, puzzles where there are a lot of permutation, combination, set theories involved, it takes me a lot more time to attempt those. Data interpretation, some table which is made, you have to fill the missing entries. Those were the kind of, or a pie chart is given, those were the kind of puzzles I was able to decently do. And if you're able to solve two puzzles correctly, you are touching 98 99 percentile in DILR. That is what I found after giving so many mocks. So you just have to select 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 5, whatever the pattern may be. And in quant again, what I felt was, because it was the last section, attempting it sometimes used to be a drag, because you get tired when you reach the end of the paper. So
Yes.
sometimes in my mocks, that section sometimes used to totally tank for me. But so that is one thing I worked on mainly. And again, you have to decide, if you're not comfortable with geometry, two questions come, don't attempt them. You're not comfortable with probability, don't attempt the questions which come. What happened this year was, I am Bangalore, they set a lot of questions on algebra. So people who were not at all comfortable with algebra, they did not end up scoring well. I also had a decent score, not too good, not too bad. But yeah, again, you have to identify if arithmetic is your strong suit. Start by attempting those questions, quadratic equation, geometry. So again, like you said, you have to identify your starting points, your strengths, your weakness. You just can't blindly go in and start attempting everything. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that would
I
be my
agree with you,
advice.
because whenever someone comes, a student comes to me or anyone, one of us, and he says, "Sir, you're not good. I'm not good in quant."
Mhm.
So we tell him that it's not about being good in quant or not being good in quant. Please identify the section, the areas, the topics which you are comfortable in, which you are not comfortable in. You have to
Correct.
identify them. It's not a generic statement that I'm not good.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
You would the you face 4 or 5 questions of maybe a geometry, you could not attempt them, and hence you're saying you're not good in number system or you're not good in algebra, but you cannot
Mhm.
say that. Quant is very topic specific. Identify the topics which are your strength, work on your weaknesses. So what's your take on, your strategy was very mock based, so what's
Mhm.
your take on someone who has just started preparing? Should he or she also start having the preparation around mocks, or cover the fundamentals? What's your take?
Well, it would be a combination, I would say. So now we're sitting in end of April, May is going to start. So you can start with, people can start with giving one mock every 2 weeks.
Yep.
You know, giving a
Yes.
mock, because in preparation, of course, you need to work on your fundamentals. If you're, don't have any idea about quant, you have to sit down and, maybe solve the NCRT books, go back to your ninth and 10th math, do all those exercises properly. That you have to anyway do, because without that you won't be able to attempt. But giving mocks, it will actually, simulate that experience, that this is the level of difficulty you're going to get in your final, on the final day as well. So if you're not giving enough mocks, that that will not prepare you mentally enough for the final day. So I would say, around 30, 40 mocks if you give before your actual CAT exam. Obviously, start slow. Leading up to it, maybe you can do something in the final month, every 2, 3 days, if that works for you. But again, the main thing is, don't get discouraged by those mock scores. I've also had really bad mocks go for me, but on the final day, the level of focus you will have on that day will be much higher than anything you have during the mocks. So
No,
yeah,
I
have some
complete.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Not every mock is going to be like 99 percentile plus, but one needs to. It's a part of your preparation. You need to understand where did you go wrong. Even Kohli does not score 100 in every match, but he goes back and understands where is he going wrong, right? And just okay, so we're not talking about the calm head there, but just in case someone has a calm head, he'll understand and improve. So Tendulkar did not have a century for the first 75 matches, one day international, which he played.
Mhm.
But then the frequency of getting that 100 increased so drastically because he was working upon himself. He was
Mhm.
working on himself. So that's very, very important.
Yeah.
So first, Yogit, so this is for someone who's just starting. So let's take. Did you also do this, that you identified a weaker area and you went back and went through the basics once more? That maybe I'm assuming that I'm strong or it's my strength, but it's not. So did that happen with you, or you were pretty confident when this you were taking the mock papers and only mock paper doing the mocks was the strategy?
Yeah, so some topics in quant I realized I had lost touch with. So when it comes to certain geometry concepts, I mean, the quant section, what I felt for me was, it's a 40-minute paper, but if I gave it in 1 hour, I was able to solve almost all the questions, doing
Right.
it in a condensed time frame. So there are certain shortcuts you have in geometry, which, in center, centroid, in circle, all of these properties, it helped on the geometry side. Then getting in touch with permutation, combination, probability once more. That also, I went back, the material, there are a lot of free resources available as well. You just pick something, you just focus on completing it. So I did maybe 50, 60 questions for PNC, probability, geometry, and some around, some around arithmetic, maybe time and work, then, you know, Q, those. volumes and surface area, all of that. You need to recap those formulas. So immediately when you see this question, okay, this is the shortcut I can apply. So that was the one thing I actually worked on. But yeah, quant topics were the ones I actually spent the most time, because those were the ones I had lost touch with. And because it's the last section of the paper, you are mentally drained, comparatively, when compared with the earlier sections. So yeah, these were the some of the topics I identified during the mocks that, okay, these are the ones I need to work on. So everyone has to do this identification by themselves, uh, straight
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, what's your take? Because you talked about it. There's so much of material which is available. What's your
Hmm.
take? How should one refer to a particular material? So what's your take? Yeah. What should
Uh,
be the selection
I
criteria? What's yeah.
Yeah. So again, it blends in with the starting point thing. If someone is finding it really difficult to keep themselves motivated during the prep, it will really help if you join, some online center which is having, daily classes or 3, 4 classes in a week. If you can join an offline center, you should definitely do that, because preparing alone, it can get very daunting. For me, it did sometimes. Along with my job, I did not have time to attend any classes. But because my starting point was, relatively higher than some other folks, I believe joining some classes brings that discipline, brings that, that someone is sitting above you who is tracking your progress, and he'll tell you where you are going wrong. That does not happen if you prepare alone. And that is the main thing I would say. If you feel you find it really difficult that, okay, you're getting a low mock score, for 2 weeks you're studying up to it, then 1 week, 2 weeks again you're not studying, then maybe join something where you'll see on the leaderboard how many people are practicing more than you. Maybe that's your motivating factor. But again, people who are working, I know, I myself,
So
I've
that's
worked,
where my
don't
next
have that
question
kind of
is.
time.
That's where my next question is. Do you think one should, take a serious attempt before they start working, or they should get a work experience? That question not come up, but this question always comes up. What's your take on it? Should one get a work experience, or
Hmm.
should one do it before, as an immediately after finishing college? What's your take?
That's again a personal preference. Personally, for me, I had not thought of doing an MBA when I passed out of my college. I got a job in IT. I had studied computer science, and I was perfectly fine with that career path. But some people, if they do realize, okay, I have to gain 2, 3 years of work experience before I join, and they've identified this in college itself, then yeah, it makes no sense to keep waiting for that final attempt. When you're eligible for it in a final year, go ahead, because simulating those many actual cat attempts, when you're up to your second or third attempt, maybe you're performing your emotional state in that attempt, it would be far better than the earlier. And if you give the earlier paper, because you are under not that much pressure, maybe you end up scoring in that attempt only. So if you know you're going to do MBA maybe immediately after college, after 2, 3 years, 4 years, give it as soon as possible. There's no point in waiting for
Yes.
the final, for the right time, for the perfect time. There's no perfect time.
Yes, so I definitely agree. And what a mature thought process. Once you identify, then put all your energies into clearing the paper.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Grass on the other side is always greener. Once, if you would want to gain some experience and then clear it, after having identified it, once you start working, you'll understand that, hang on, boss, no one's giving you a salary just to
Uh,
make you sit and study for CAT. They will make you work,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they'll make you
definitely.
work a lot. So, what was your working timings, Ishaan, by the way? How long were your working hours?
My timings, so my timings were actually 1:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. So in the mornings, I used to have free for myself. And
Hmm.
so that time, usually it's, upside down. You're not accustomed to this kind of work timing. So yeah, I try to squeeze in, 1 hour or 2 hour of prep. But again, I did not do this every day. Sometimes one day in a week, 2 days a week. Mainly on the weekend, I used to sit. Okay, today I'll give 3, 4 hours. I'll give one mock and analyze it the next day.
Hmm.
So along with working, because after working also you're drained, and in the morning, when you're working till late night, again, you wake up a bit late. So it's difficult to manage. But I know some people who really, take out time every day after their working hours end as well. So again, preparation strategy, whenever I also talk to friends around me, it's always a personal thing. You cannot, see someone else and try to replicate whatever he did or she did into
Right.
your own thing. So that won't work at all.
So please keep
Yes.
asking questions. I've just typed that on the YouTube channel. I'll just ask all these questions right away. Another 5-10 minutes. I'll start asking Ishaan those questions. Ishaan, tell us something about the interview part of your preparation, and then how are the interviews different? Of which all interviews did you appear for, and how are the interviews different? Something there,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Right. So I started with IIM Ahmedabad. So this was one interview. I felt they explored every aspect of my profile. So they started with my college experience. In Goa, they talked about Goa, the beaches, how I used to spend my time outside class. They talked about After that, they talked about badminton. I played at the national level, so they wanted to know what I learned during this experience I had. After that, they came to my work experience. So I worked in a US bank. They asked me about the first of all my role, what my team did, then the global banking scenario currently, then the digital payment scenario in India. How do these UPI apps, how do they make money? So they went on that direction as well. After that, they came to they brought this topic of maybe do you read a lot of books? So they talked about some of the books I read, and they ended it with a maths question. So this was one interview. They went into second, third level of depth in all of these aspects. It lasted around 25 minutes. In I am Bangalore. So I am Bangalore is the one institute where they make you write a 600-word SOP before your interview, and they ask questions exclusively from that SOP. So I'm Bangalore. One thing you can be sure of, because you tailor it according to your work experience a lot, people who have work experience. So you're reasonably sure they are going to ask you about your work experience in very much detail, which did not happen with me. They
So
just
oh, okay.
So it was a 45-minute interview, but I was interested in finance and investing. My half of my interview was on that, what kind of investing frameworks I use, what kind of research I do, what books I have read. Then the other part was around sports, badminton. If I'm the CEO of a company who wants to, raise the badminton standard in India, how will I do it? So these kind of questions it revolved around. They did not ask me about my work experience as such. So yeah, I have to see how it went because the results are not out yet. In Calcutta, it was a pretty short interview, 10 minutes. They again talked about my hobbies only. They, asked that in the form. So I had written about reading books. I had written about my role model, Steve Jobs. So they talked about Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Apple. They talked about books. They gave me one guesstimate around semiconductors and how many semiconductors are sold in India annually. Then geopolitics in semiconductors. And it was a pretty short interview, 10 minutes. Um, Lucknow, again, pretty short for me. Kozhikode was the one interview where it felt like a very rapid fire thing where they weren't letting you complete your answer to a logical conclusion. Right away, they'll fire another question once they see you're maybe droning on, or thinking too much. Yeah. So every institution's interview, if you have this idea that okay, Ahmedabad, they will explore everything of your profile. Bangalore, it did not happen for me, but you can be reasonably sure around half your interview will revolve around your work experience. I
So
had a
45
finance.
minutes in Bangalore, 45 minutes in Bangalore, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, and because I worked in a financial institution, half of my interview went around finance. So it was related, but not related to my work as such. So
Okay.
that is one thing you can be sure. Calcutta, again, they did not ask me maths, but maths is one thing Calcutta focuses a lot on. I mean, they'll ask you to make graphs, x to the power x, or any factorial graph. They'll ask you to prove some theorem. That happens in Calcutta a lot. In Lucknow, they also they'll also read from your form. And this year, I've heard a lot of people have had 8 to 10 minute interviews only, and they are very, I would say, you would not expect what line of questioning they would take. So it's better to be, completely okay with whatever questions they're asking. Don't, take it too much pressure that, okay, I did not know where this came from. Kozhikode, again, they focus a lot on GK. They asked my friend, okay, what is the length of India's coastline? How far is the Coast Guard, allowed to go from
Did he have something concerned educational background or
the.
no? Okay.
They expect you to know, governors,
Hmm.
CMs,
Hmm.
how does the parliament work. So Kozhikode, they, focus a lot on this. Indore is a lot more focused on your academics. They asked me questions about, database management and data structures and algorithms. They asked me which were my favorite subjects in college. They asked me about this and something around finance, uh, because I worked in a bank. So where you're working, I personally found in all my interviews, because I worked in a bank, a major portion of my interview is around banking, finance, all of that. So yeah, you have to understand from your profile what is going to make someone question from you. So that again
Also,
is.
Ishaan, I'll say something here because I've I've seen this. Jahan pe bhi, wherever there's banking, economics, finance,
Mm.
their faculty members are so comfortable with
Yeah,
asking
they are
these
also
questions. They
strong
know
with this.
everything.
Uh,
They know
yeah,
everything.
they get really excited.
Yes. कि अब हमारे एरिया का क्वेश्चन आ गया.
Correct, correct.
Yes, yes.
So
So
yeah.
I'm sure it was the same with you as well. So if
Yeah.
you're from banking, finance, commerce, economics kind of
Mm.
a background, rest assured they already have questions ready for you. They already
Definitely.
have questions ready for you. Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, the first question actually comes from. I'll not go order wise, but I'll ask you what we've just been talking about and what's more relevant. So, what do you think is work experience important? This comes from Ridhmeet Kaur. To cracking an IIM, though we have another session which will soon be lined up with someone who does not have a work experience, has cracked IIM Ahmedabad, and is also a Hitbullseye student. So we'll
Mm.
also have a session there, Ridhmeet. But let's hear it from Ishaan. What does he think? That's important. Yeah.
Cracking an IIM does not, I mean, work experience is not necessary for cracking at all. There is a certain percentage of freshers which every institute takes, and they they're always evaluating you based on your, category or peer group or academic peers. So a lot of freshers, they do convert. I am Ahmedabad, also Bangalore, Calcutta. It's not important. It's a personal preference. If you feel you'll be in a, maybe your, cards are not good, maybe you need to, show some kind of, if you already have an offer, you need to show that, okay, after 2 years this is what I learned, and it's a logical conclusion which will help me clear my interview when they ask me about this, that after this I want to reach here. It is easier to justify it that way sometimes for some people. So it's a very personal preference. But if you're sure about, you want to do an MBA later on, that should not stop you from giving the CAT exam at all. Give it. If it's in the back of your mind, okay, I would give a significant boost to my profile if I gain some work experience, then you should go for it. But if you are a fresher, you should not at all be concerned that, they will just, not consider you because you don't have work experience. That is not true at all. A lot of people go to the top colleges.
Yes, definitely. I still remember one of the students. I don't remember the percentile exactly, but had just scored 60%, made
Hmm.
it to IIM Bangalore.
Yeah,
Had
yeah.
just scored 60%,
Happens.
and academics was, and he was a fresher. He made it to Bangalore.
Hmm.
So but he could prove a point that why he could not score, and he answered the questions. But that's where the next question comes from. Nitin says, Nitin is asking, how did you handle the question in Ahmedabad interview, or for that matter, I'll make it general, that you obviously did not know everything about all, you did not know answers to all the questions. How did you handle those questions? Ahmedabad, he's asking, but I would want you to answer for all the B schools here.
Yeah, I mean, for some questions, you just have to say, sir, I'm not completely clear about this. You know, I don't have the required information, so won't be able to answer this. On some questions, you can maybe, take their permission. Sir, is it okay if I don't have a complete picture, but I like to, whatever I know, I'll try to convey it across. So in Ahmedabad, for example, they asked me about how does Google make money? And I talked about the advertising. They make money from advertising. They have, GCP also, and they do a lot of cross selling through their UPI app. But the keyword which they wanted, I was talking about, they have so much traffic on their site and everything. The word they wanted was data, and I was not able to reach that word. So the professor was prompting me in the right direction, and he then just said that word data, and I could relate whatever I said previously to that word, and I completed the answer thereon. So sometimes if you're in the vicinity of the actual answer, they'll probably help you. Sometimes they won't. They'll just say, okay, we'll move on. But yeah, you just have to read the situation, and you have to be polite. You just can't say, sir, I don't know. Make it that uh, you don't have a complete picture, or sir, I haven't heard of this before, or definitely I'll look into it. This never crossed my mind. You can be creative with how you phrase if you don't know a particular question. But yeah, it's going to happen. I was maybe able to answer around 75% of questions in my Ahmedabad interview, similar 80% around in all of them. So you're not going to ace every question. That is not going to happen.
Yes, I agree with you. No one can answer all the questions.
Yeah. They
How do
are,
you handle the interview and what calmness do you put across
yeah,
is very important. Is
the, pro-
very, very important.
the professors, they are very, they're very perceptive of your profile and what kind of questions. I think they know these type of questions are going to make you uncomfortable. You're not, they do know how to put you under pressure. It's not going to be easy, right, in any interview.
Yes, yes. One needs to understand how to come out of those pressure situations as well. That's very, very important.
Correct.
Okay, so the next question. What are they? So Shivansh is asking, what are the requirements for getting admission in IIM Ahmedabad? What percentile college scores? You've talked about it a little, but just throw some more light on it, please.
So, so again, this criteria, what IIM Ahmedabad, they have done is they have divided all students according to their academic categories. So I have come from an engineering background. So I am only going to compete with some seats with people in from engineering only. Those are my competition. If you are from humanities, you are going to compete against other humanities students. If you're from commerce, that's your competition. You come from law, fashion, they have categories for all of these. So I don't know the cutoffs for other fields. For engineering, I would say you need a minimum 99.8. If you're a fresher, you need a 99.8, 0.85 to make it. In general category, I'm saying. If you have work experience, if some people have 3 or 4 years, people have gotten calls at around 99.4, 99.5 as well. So if you're a fresher, you need to score higher. They have a 65% weightage to the CAT score. And this is similar across all academic categories. You have to be in the top percentile of your competition. That's how they do their selection. Ahmedabad specifically.
College score. Okay, so next question comes from a similar question. I'm a BCom student. Kritarth says, hi Ishaan, I'm a BCom student and will be in my final year while writing CAT exam. I want to ask you how crucial is CV and what should my CV look like? So I think you've 90% you've answered it. Rest 10% if you think you've missed something, you can add on.
CV, I mean, you have to highlight your internships. Of course, you have to highlight the club societies you were a part of in college. Um, then you have to make sure you have certain hobbies which you'll, be able to talk about in the interview, some projects you did. Um, yeah, that's all I would say. I mean, it's not at all a deal breaker if you don't have work experience to talk about. That is not going to happen. So focus mainly, your internship is the proxy to your work experience. Make sure you're well versed on what you did, what was the outcome from that project, how it helped the company and all. So yeah, that should be good.
I'll just like to add here, Ishaan,
Yeah.
that Kritarth, just remember whatever. Obviously, you know the best what you've done, but whatever you're writing down in your CV, you need to be very comfortable and have
Yeah,
in-depth understanding and knowledge of it.
correct.
You
Don't put
cannot
something in for
say,
the sake of it.
yeah, and not with having a peripheral knowledge of something, you cannot write it.
Mhm.
We had a student whose parents last year and this BBKP session is there on this channel itself, that this student was a pharmacy student, cracked the IIM, was helping his father in the chemist shop. His father had a chemist shop, had the family had COVID, he was helping, he was running that shop. They went in depth in understanding the revenue, profitability, everything, and he talked very clearly about it. Okay, so
Mhm.
he also came across a challenge, but he had mentioned it somewhere in his CV and they grilled him around it. But then, if you can answer, your selection is done. Right? Am I right, Ishaan?
Yeah, definitely. And sir, I would like to mention another experience I know of.
Yes,
So,
please.
uh, I was for the GDPI prep, I was going to the Hitbullseye Center in 34. So, Meet sir told a story in class. He said a girl, I think she was from an agriculture or architecture background. She was from a different background. They asked her in Ahmedabad interview, what does your dad do? Her dad worked in a bank. Her whole interview went on banking, and she
That's
was
a
not prepared
lovely,
for it.
lovely area.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So,
yeah.
and she was not prepared for it because it's not in on her CV. So have your CV, have a good understanding of that. Know if you're part of a family business, but if you have a family business, but you're not part of it, you should know in depth how does that family business operate. You should know
Yes.
if your mother is working, how does that industry work, where your sister is working, how does that industry work. That also is a major point you should, be prepared with before going to the interview. You never know. They'll ask, what does your dad do? What does your sister do? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's one point.
Yeah, that's definitely. If you talk about something, they can ask you about it. Simple. And it was, I think, banking, because a person will make the right choice only if he knows that which are the 9 things which he's rejecting or not taking
Mhm.
up because of, and he's understood that. It's just not because ये मुझे अच्छा लगता है. अरे भाई ये
Yeah.
कतरीना कैफ या करीना कपूर नहीं है, अच्छा लगता है. ठीक है, leave it. You need to understand you're making a career choice for the rest of your life. Because
Mhm.
that's very important. It's just not कि चलो और कुछ नहीं मिला तो मैं बीकॉम कर लेता हूँ और कुछ नहीं मिला तो चलो मैं यहाँ से इंजीनियरिंग कर लेता हूँ. It's not like that. Please, they don't want such students. They want to know why you're selecting a particular field, and if you're selecting a particular field, why are you rejecting the other 9? And
Mhm.
that comes from your peripheral, this family knowledge, understanding. Okay. So if the next question, so we've answered this, just one. So I've asked this. Okay, so getting back to the mock cats, Ishaan, tell us, Ashna's asking, please
Mhm.
tell us your strategy on how you analyze the mocks. And I think we missed that and kept a track of your progress. How did you analyze your mocks?
Okay. Analysis, in a sense, it's attempting the whole paper again, but with more time. You sit with those questions. Some questions, for example, you missed in quant, or you weren't able to attempt a LRDI set. Sit with all of those sets. Even if you completely solved something, sit down with those, take 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour, try to solve whatever you can do. For me, I kept a 20-minute hard stop. If I can't solve something, a particular puzzle in 20 minutes, I just used to see the solution. one thing is my one of my friends also told me in one of when we're discussing this, never let a question surprise you twice. That is the advice he also gave
Perfect.
to
Very
other
nice.
people.
Aptly put. Yes.
If you come across one particular type of a quant question or one particular RC, which maybe it came from philosophy, maybe it came from zoology or something, keep it in the back of your mind. This is how the progression went. These were the themes being discussed here. You had experienced those for the first time. Maybe that's why you weren't able to solve this. Then there are some mistakes which happen, silly mistakes, we call them. jaldi jaldi mein 4 plus 2 8 हो गया, और 4 divided by 2 वो भी 8 हो गया, कुछ भी
हाँ
हो
हो
सकता
जाता
है.
है.
So yeah, those you cannot do anything about them. That is just because you weren't focused at that point in time. That is based on focus. You don't have to worry too much about that. I used to take, if the mock is for 2 hours, you analyze your exam for around 3 hours. It used to take me, because you're sitting down with every question again and you're solving it to completion, the whole exam. Take 3 4 hours, 5 hours. I mean, जितना भी time लगता है, you should sit down and solve it completely and maintain a notebook. These were the ones जो completely बिल्कुल ही हवा नहीं लगी, ऊपर से चले गए, उनको तो अलग से लिख लो. So that really helped for me, the analysis part. And analysis is going to improve your score later on. Just doing mocks and then, okay, I got a 95 percentile, I got 90 percentile, leaving it, that is not going to, what will you do the next time? You'll probably make the same mistakes. Analyzing it is the most important thing. Do less mocks, analyze them properly instead of doing, 100 mocks and, not analyzing 75 of them. That is not going to help.
Okay, so I think he's answered your question. Samiksha is asking the next question. Samiksha, first question, I'll take it up. But before that, I'll ask the second question which you've asked here. Have you ever experienced a low percentile in mocks? I think you've answered this, but just again, if you could throw some light here.
Yeah, I have. I've also gotten around 80, 85 percentile in couple of mocks. LRD, I said, sometimes negative marks I've also gotten. I mean, 2 sets I solved, one completely wrong. In the other one, I got 2 3 correct, rest 3 wrong. So yeah, it happens. But you just have to sit down again and figure out what went wrong in those puzzles.
And don't get into that trap again. As he just said, you cannot make that same mistake twice.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Ishaan?
Yeah.
So answering your first question, Samiksha, because it's not relevant with Ishaan. If one has to reappear in one of the bachelor degrees, can we still have selection? Answer is yes. Okay, it's not like you cannot have an optimistic approach. Yes, you can still get into a good B school. Ishaan, so that's about the questions. We have 7 minutes left. One simple thing I want to ask you, it's सीधी भाषा में क्या लगता है? Paper हो जाता है कि it's something which is very difficult to crack. You need to be a Sachin Tendulkar or a Virat Kohli to actually get into it. What's your take?
ये एप्टीट्यूड पेपर है ना, तो सिलेबस इतना वास्ट नहीं है जितना मे बी जेई के लिए होता है, सीयूईटी के लिए लोग प्रिपेयर करते हैं और एग्जाम्स के लिए. बहुत कंसाइज है, सेट पैटर्न भी है, हर साल ऐसा आता है. एंड पेपर तो हो जाता है. प्रिपरेशन में यू हैव टू मेंटेन सम कंसिस्टेंसी. गॉड फॉरबिड कैट ऑन द फाइनल डे गोज बैड. और भी बहुत एग्जाम्स होते हैं सीजन में, एंड बहुत अच्छे कॉलेजेस हैं आज की डेट में. देयर आर अराउंड 40 50 गुड कॉलेजेस व्हिच इफ यू गेट इनटू, लाइफ इज मतलब
Yes,
बहुत अच्छा स्टार्ट मिलता है उनके बाद.
I agree with you.
या सो प्रिपरेशन में dial down the fear a bit. One thing I learned, going to these interviews as well, बहुत सारे लोग तुम्हारे जैसे ही होते हैं और वो भी डरे होते हैं, सब डरे होते हैं, सब एक साथ चल रहे हैं. कोई वो बहुत रेयर होते हैं जो एकदम हर मॉक में 99.9 ला रहे हैं, एकदम टॉपर्स अलग से दिखते हैं. मेजॉरिटी जनता वैसी नहीं है. सो believe in yourself ki just by keeping a cool head, automatically you're ahead of a lot of other people on the final.
Exactly. Yes.
That is the
Yes.
most important thing. Preparation के time इतना मत dejected हो अपने low score से, काम करते रहो, वो बस mock analyze कर लो कहाँ पे किस type का question में तुम्हें गलती नजर आती है, work on that. Final day पे it will give you some result definitely. Just keep a cool head, have your self confidence intact. बाकी वही है.
Did you also, so you talked about other B schools. Did you also apply for FMS? That's also a question which has just come up from Harsh Gulati.
Yes, I did apply. Yes.
Okay.
Interview was on Monday, this Monday only.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything you would like to share about the FMS interview?
FMS interview. So FMS is famous for conducting short interviews, but this year they have increased the duration. My interview was around, I think, 12, 13 minutes. And what FMS does is they'll ask you to introduce yourself. Based on an introduction, they'll give you an extempore topic on which they'll give you 10 seconds to think. 1 minute, you have to speak on it. So they gave me zero as the topic to speak on. So I talked about Isaac Asimov's science fiction books. So the professor, he had read his books and he took zero from that. And he was expecting me to talk about, how zero is used in that book. That is what he wanted me to talk about. Uske baad, they went on, uh, there were two lady professors as well. They asked me about badminton. They asked me about the banking crisis. They asked me about the 2008 crisis. So, yeah, it was, they did not go to that level of depth in my answers, but they explored every aspect. And 12, 13 minutes, usually they have 7, 8 minute interviews. This year they have increased it. So, yeah, that was.
Did you prepare specifically for FMS as well, or no? You prepared for mock cats and then you.
No. You don't have to. So FMS was one of the last interviews of the season. So by that time, I mean, even if you're not well prepared, I already knew they are going to ask about banking. They are going to ask me about badminton. Initially, what happens, you try to do everything. You try to, you try to learn about the electric vehicle industry. You try to learn about the mining industry, the agriculture sector. Interviewer does not have that much time to quiz you on all this. Of course, exceptions happen. Some people, कुछ लोग लेके बैठ जाएंगे कि चलो agriculture sector की बात करते हैं. But if that is not in your profile, be thorough with your own profile first. उसके बाद बाकी जो पेरिफेरी पे है ना, फिर बाकी का प्रिपेयर करो. क्योंकि तुम्हें अगर अपना नहीं आता ना, that creates a that creates a bad impression instead of कि कुछ भी पूछ लिया तुम्हें वो नहीं आता. So that
Exactly.
is one advice I would give.
So one last question, which I like to answer, sir. What was your strategy for the last 4 months? See, Ishan's strategy primarily revolved around mock cats and how to attempt the paper because he knew his starting point. So everyone needs to identify their starting point. If you need to, and he's talking about this, that if you're weak in fundamentals, please start from your fundamentals, finish your fundamentals, but don't stop taking mock cats. Start taking mock cats right away. That's very, very important. And however, the frequency should not be that high. The more you approach the paper, last 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, the frequency should be really high. So, Misha, I think I've answered your question, and this was the strategy because that's how one ends up cracking the paper. Ishaan, to last 2 minutes, last few lines for our aspiring students, and some of them will obviously take clues from what you've said, what we've discussed, and implemented. But what's your final concluding comments here?
Final comments would be, have confidence in yourself, be consistent in your efforts. Don't make CAT such a big part of your life that you start leaving other things which build your profile or build your personality. I mean, if you're if you're working, because it's an aptitude paper, right? You don't have to spend 8 to 10 hours every day studying for this particular
Perfect.
exam.
Yes.
You keep doing everything. What they want to see in the interview is a well-rounded individual. Never leave things which take away certain parts of a personality why during the preparation phase is the main thing. Because final mein interview weightages are huge. Even if you have a stellar academic record, but your interviewer thinks maybe you're not a
Overall personality, overall,
yeah, it's
hobbies,
not
everything is not developed. So
yeah, it's not fit for the class, maybe you won't get an admit. So do everything. Don't get too emotionally attached with one particular institute. Sometimes that happens. It just builds unnecessary pressure. Have a range of dream colleges you want to get into. Have some realistic ones. Have realistic targets for yourself, and rest assured there are a lot of opportunities. CAD, ZAD, SNAP. You don't have to take undue pressure on that day, because then you would feel इतना सब किया भी बट फिर वो मतलब मजा नहीं आया उसके बाद. So keep a cool head during this entire thing. Something or the other amazing will happen definitely.
I am sure what a mature personality. I wish you all the very best, Ishaan, from every student side, Hitbullseye, my side. We wish you all the very, very best. And I always say the way I got associated with Hitbullseye 20 years back, welcome to the other side now, right? With
Sure, sir.
Hitbullseye.
Yeah.
Look forward for a very long-term association. And
Yeah.
I wish all the students who are preparing, please, बस ठंडे रहना, काम रहना, लड़ाई करके पेपर नहीं होता, सब कुछ साथ लेके चलो, पेपर हो जाएगा. It's not that difficult a paper. At times you're focusing too much on a particular topic, but that's only to get your concepts ready. Hitbullseye has all the material. Please cover that material end to end, right? But know your starting point. If you're good in a particular section, you want to skip the fundamentals, that's okay, right? You know your preparation the best, right? Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Ishaan, once again. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right, sure. Yeah, bye.